Yeah, that's where the whole term "going postal" comes from. Is like they were disgruntled postal workers that came and like shot up the post office.
Hold on. I did not know this.
Soundstripe.
Welcome in to another episode of Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast where if you're like us and you miss the days of packed movie theaters and movie stores, and this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Caleb Suggs. Joining me is my co-host, Dakota Lowry.
Glad to have you again this week.
And also Ernie Ferguson.
My dad could barely hold me, much less cut me up into little pieces.
And this week we're doing 1995's Jumanji. That was Dakota's pick.
Absolutely, it is. I was a little surprised about this movie, honestly.
In what way?
Bad surprised?
I like I said, I held this movie to a lot higher standard in my mind, I guess, because it was one of the 3 DVDs that I had as a kid to watch. But it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, you know, especially when I started looking up in this movie and I saw it had such a low Rotten Tomatoes rating. I think I went into it with like a, hey, like this is going to be a bad movie, and then I watched it and I was like, actually, it was enjoyable, you know. I mean, it wasn't anything to, you know, it wasn't like just a blockbuster and knock it out of the park, but you know.
52% for Rotten Tomatoes for a movie like this. That's not that low. I mean, 52%. Nah. I mean, you got to understand Rotten Tomatoes scores. So I mean, I think Twister had like what, a 50 something or a 60 something. And so I mean, for a movie, for
66,
a kids movie like this, I wouldn't say 52% is that, you know, that's right what I expected. When you talk about getting into a low rating where you're like, oh, this could be a bad movie, that's in like the 20s and stuff like that. So, but
that's the one thing that you said when you said kids movie that I had to go back and revisit that, because this time, first of all, when I think of the movie, I think of it fondly, and I hadn't watched it in I don't know how long, but then watching it under the guise of being an adult, it was much different. But then when I think about it, if I'm watching this when my daughter was about 5 or 6 with her, completely different grade of a movie than with me just watching it right now, because I think it is a good kids movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's one thing I had to kind of go because again, I had my score in my head beforehand, then I had my score afterwards. Then I'm like, well, do I do it as a movie or do I do it as a kid's movie? You know, it sounds like Princess Bride territory. Like, is it a kids movie or is it a movie? How are you supposed to take it? You know?
Yeah.
That's what, when I did not enjoy watching Princess Bride, but I gave it a bump in my rating because I was like, you know, if I had seen this as a kid, I'd probably have fond memories. But unlike the two of you, I did not have fond memories of this movie. I watched it as a kid, didn't really like it. So I was going into
What did you like about it as a kid? Do you remember?
I just thought it was kind of boring.
I can see that.
See, my wife didn't like it either. I think there was some aspects of it that as a kid she got afraid of.
I can see that.
Yeah, that she didn't like, and it kind of scared her as a kid, especially when there's huge mosquitoes flying around, and then you know you go outside and there's mosquitoes, and you see the effects that it has on the people. I think little Brian Kamei assigned that with, you know, like the mosquitoes we have in Alabama, but I don't know. I don't. Even Kamei got done watching, and she was like, hey, you know, like that's actually not that bad of a movie. Like it was pretty good, pretty enjoyable. I do think some of the animation could have been done a little bit better. There was some of it that was knocked out the park. I mean, the lion, the stampede, like some of that was, I was like, it was top tier. Then you see the monkeys, and
The
you're like,
monkeys,
oh man, the monkeys were
which
a little rough.
which is crazy because this is what 2 years after Jurassic Park, and we got this type of. Now I don't know if they are trying to make it like the book. Because I didn't see any of the animation for the book, and I'm wondering if they were trying to make the monkeys look like the monkeys that were in the book. I don't know, but the monkeys were tough to. You talk about giving a little kid nightmares. Those things, I'm like, they were awful.
This movie actually had a slightly higher budget than Jumanji, than
That's
Jurassic
the
Park
crazy thing too.
which is
So-
surprising.
But now I wonder how much of that is Robin Williams at this time,
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
because
Probably
you look at the Jurassic Park, there's not a lot of one. It's an ensemble cast, and there's
Mhm.
not the big ticket star. Robin Williams was the big ticket
Yeah.
star right here,
You,
because
you
they
talked
actually because he actually had to get approved. They had to get his approval of the script before he would join in, because Tom Hanks was also one, but he was doing Apollo 13. So that was another one, which this is a completely different movie, I think. It's still in the same type of action and acting as Robin Williams. And maybe Hanks goes
don't-
overboard than more. This is one thing I thought about Robin Williams in this movie. He was very subdued.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
And
wasn't a lot of comedic relief.
was not expecting that.
I actually don't think it would be that much different a movie with Tom Hanks. I'd
I don't
see
think
it
it
as
would
a
either.
similar, very similar performance. Because, like you said,
Well,
Robin Williams is kind of tame in this movie. I think
Tom Hanks goes overboard. That if it's Tom Hanks, I think he goes like extreme overboard with it.
I
Which
think if Robin Williams had been more like Robin Williams, this might have been a more entertaining movie to me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I also think, as I'm watching it this time, I'm comparing it to the newer Jumanji movies that I really like. Obviously, they're not like cinematic masterpieces, but they're very entertaining and funny. And so I really enjoyed the two. So I'm also, and I feel like that maybe shouldn't affect the way I view this movie, but I feel like it probably did.
Well, you also have to take, though, the new movies are bringing the people into the board game.
Yes, which I liked a lot better.
Which this is taking them out. You know,
I thought the newer movies took the concept of this movie and made it better.
See, I think they both did well with what they were doing. The board game, you left what was inside the game to the imagination, especially in 1995, which is probably the best thing to do. Whereas when you have the technology, it makes sense in the newer ones to bring them into the video game. And so I think both of them, with the basis that they had, the board game versus the video game, I think they both did right, because if you take Alan or into the board game, now we're talking about more CGI, and it looks even worse. I like the speech that he gives Peter about, you don't know what I've seen, and all this kind of stuff. Just that leaves your imagination to flow in the board game part of the movie, whereas the video game, again, it hits the modern day crowd. That's why I think also the movies were aiming at different people too, because you look at board game Jumanji, you have Robin Williams. That's it. You have the video game, you have not only you have the action stars in The Rock, I guess technically you could say Kevin Hart too, and then Karen Gillian too, because Kevin Hart has been in action movies. Now again, they're buddy cop movies, but he's been in action movies, But then you also have the comedic players of The Rock, Kevin Hart, and Jack Black. So you have Robin Williams doing all the heavy carrying in the one movie by himself, whereas you have an ensemble cast that are both action, I would say, stars, action actors, and comedic actors. So again, just a broad difference, because I don't want to see the Jumanji board game, and you go inside of it and you see Alan is just chilling out like Joe Jonas is, just kicking his heels up, that takes away from the whole entire backstory of 26 years of being trapped in this game and having to survive. I think that's, again, they serve two different purposes. They do two different things. That's why I think you could do. I'll tell you what. I will watch a Jumanji 1869 prequel. I want to know what those kids in the very beginning of this movie, what they went through. And that's the thing with Jumanji. You could do it anytime. You could make different Jumanji games. You could make an Arctic Jumanji game, and have different animals and different things. Jumanji, if they wanted to do different actors, if they wanted to do different board games or video games, they're set up to throw out as many different possibilities because it's infinite with what you can do.
Oh yeah.
You better correct yourself. It's Nick Jonas, or you're going to get a text message from Kamei Lowry.
As long as I know it's not Kevin. That's what I do know that. So
yeah.
He's the
you
tool
made a
of the
comment
bunch.
about you made a comment about the monkeys trying to be based off the animation in the book. If you look up the cover for the book, they're very similar, but the faces on the book look significantly better than the faces in the movie.
That's not hard to do. I mean, that's
I think the book came out in 1981 though, so it's they'd had 14 years.
Which I'll tell you this: I think in the same world of Jumanji, the same author did what Zathura. That's a much better movie. I think it's also much better acting too in it, but that's for a different time and place. So again, if you're watching Jumanji, you want to see a better version of Jumanji, go watch Zathura. That's with an X, children.
Well, Jumanji is a 1995 American dark fantasy adventure film directed by Joe Johnston from a screenplay by Jonathan Hensley, Greg Taylor, and Jim Strain, based on the 1981 children's picture book of the same name by Chris Van Allsburg. The film is the first installment in the Jumanji film series and stars Robin Williams, Kirsten Dunst, David Alan Grier, Bonnie Hunt, Jonathan Hyde, and Bebe Neuwirth?
Yeah, from Frasier.
The story centers on a supernatural board game that releases jungle-based hazards on its players with every turn they take. Jumanji was released on December 15th, 1995, and it grossed $262.8 million on a budget of $65 million. It holds a Rotten Tomatoes score of 52%, and I do not know the IMDb? What is it, Ferg?
He does the popcorn.
It's 63. It's 63.
63%.
The IMDb rating is actually a lot higher at 7.1.
Yeah. The film received mixed reviews from critics, but was a box office success, being the 10th highest grossing film of 1995.
That's pretty impressive, being 10th all in that year. Well,
9 is Waterworld and 8 is Casper.
Oh well.
No, that's Casper. I enjoyed Waterworld compared to Casper. Casper was awful, but then again, I'm a Kevin Costner fan, so I also don't go into movies with huge expectations and stuff like that. But I liked Waterworld, but that's neither here nor there, though.
Ernie, could you guess what the highest grossing film in 1995 was, real quickly?
Oh, in 1995, I'm going to say Apollo 13. No, Braveheart. No, no,
Brave.
Probably Bad Boys.
No, it was Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Die Hard with a Vengeance. That's the third one, right?
You're telling me it wasn't Major Payne?
Toy Story was second, and Apollo 13 was third. I am surprised. Bad Boys did come out in 1995, didn't it? It's not in the top 10.
Yeah, Bad Boys did. Bad Boys, The Usual Suspects, Friday with Ice Cube, and I don't recognize who this other actor is.
Well,
there's a lot.
Anyways, 10th highest grossing film, did very well at the box office, especially for, like you said, a kids movie.
No.
Yeah, that was the power of like Robin Williams in the '90s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he rolled out some movies during that time period. Some were bangers, and some of them were kind of. I mean, you have like Patch Adams,
Flubber.
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 It's just, but they were.
Mrs.
I think
Doubtfire.
it's Doubtfire. Yeah, there.
That
So
was
he
that
had
was that was the A tier movie, S tier movie.
S tier movie.
I forgot.
You're
Ernie doesn't know what S tier means.
no, I don't.
That's like the highest tier. S tier means the highest.
Superior.
If you do a tier list, S is actually the highest, not A.
So it's Alpha Sigma Skibbity Ohio type of stuff, huh?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've explained this to you before.
Again, how much older? How much older am I than you? Exactly.
The mind's always first thing to go.
No, I categorize
Speaking of
important things in my mind, and that's not important in my mind.
Speaking of which, today is my dad's birthday. 50 years old. Happy birthday, Padre.
Yeah. Yes. He got announced for 40 years, and I don't know if anybody heard me chuckle in the background whenever Mr. Garner said 40 years old.
Okay. I don't know who he paid to say that, but whatever.
He didn't. He made, in your true dad's fashion, he sends a text message and said, I am not 40 years old. I am 50. Because again, that is your dad.
So speaking of Robin Williams in the '90s, going back to that, 39 movies that he was in the '90s, and a few TV show appearances.
Really?
Yeah, he was in that cold open of Friends, that one episode.
Yeah,
that's still one of the best openings of a Friends episode.
So 38.
Is that him and
Saturday
Billy
morning.
Crystal? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. They do the weird story as they're sitting on the couch with them.
Oh, that's right, man. He was in Hamlet too. That in '96. That again, just I mean, Patch Adams, Good Will Hunting, Hamlet, the Birdcage, which was, oh man, the Birdcage is funny too.
I mean,
the
he
Doctor in 9
movies,
months, Miss Doubtfire, Aladdin, the Fisher King, which is
again going back to this movie. I did not think he was as funny as he usually is. And I think that, to me, set the movie back. It could have been a lot better had he been true Robin Williams that I love. But maybe that's just me, though.
Well, he was, again, treated. I mean, we can talk about the mental damage of all the people in this movie. Just whether you get sucked into a game, or whether you saw your friends sucked into a game and everybody wouldn't believe you, or whether you ran a town dry because you're spending all your money trying to look for a child that you allegedly chopped up, or whether your parents died in a car crash, or whether you have to take over these kids that parents died in the car crash, or whether you lost your job because some little snot-nosed brat got shoe caught up in a conveyor belt and you have to be not a very good police officer. There's as the meme says, emotional damage. There's a lot of that that's going on in this movie.
Carl is my favorite part of the movie. Like, he is the best part of the movie. Especially the way he continues to drive around the cop car.
That classic Caprice classic, man, it could take a hit ticking, man. I mean, if you haven't watched In Living Color, the TV show, David Alan Grier was, to me, the funny. I mean, people liked Damon Wayans and people like Jim Carrey in it. David Alan Grier was always funny. I didn't think he got enough credit for how funny he was in Living Color.
Speaking, I know there's a lot of things that happen in this movie. Speaking of the girl that was there that night specifically, how is she not locked up in prison? I think that's my biggest question about this movie. You were the last person to see him living, and you have no substantial evidence that he was sucked into a board game, as you say. How are you not, put away for that?
Well, there's no body. There's nothing like that. So I mean, I think it's one of those things where they just think, okay, she's just crazy because since there was no body, that's where all the rumors of the dad chopping up the little kid into pieces came about. Just
Putting him in the walls of the house.
yeah, put him
Yeah, I guess.
put him in the walls of the house. So here's a question. I mean, if you know if she didn't roll a 5 or 8 the next time, if the two kids didn't play and she didn't roll a 5 or 8, it's Alan's turn. I mean, how's the game end? If Alan's stuck in the game and she doesn't roll a 5 or 8 and they can't go out a turn, then then Alan's just stuck.
Yeah, I thought about that, and the only logical thing that I could come up with was it's like kind of like in Monopoly where you're just stuck in jail until you roll doubles type of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's just like we'll just skip your turn since you didn't roll doubles. Like, oh, you can't roll a 5 or 8, well, we'll just go back to her turn until she rolls a 5 or 8. That's kind of what my explanation with it was, but it's a silly little kids movie, Ferg. We're not supposed to think about those things.
Because, as Caleb probably knows too, because he's probably heard the same thing, and I've heard this on other things too, is why didn't they just roll the dice as fast as they could? Because the only thing that came really, really fast were the spiders. Everything else, they were like, oh, look around. Do you feel that? What is that?
We rolled, so now let's sit here and wait for the.
Let's wait for the bad things to happen. Let's not try to get out of here as soon as possible. Just roll. And even when Alan comes back, okay, so you have some oversized mosquitoes. Eventually, they'll get killed. You do have some monkeys that are causing some havoc, but again, I think eventually people will catch them. And you have one lion. Okay, somebody get that. Stop playing the game. I mean, he's not going to go back in the game. Just stop playing the game. All that other stuff. I mean, the monkeys are the biggest thing. The lion, somebody comes up there, tranks the lion, he's going to the zoo. The mosquitoes, you just get an oversized tennis racket that has electricity on it. You slap it, they're gone. So now all you have left is the monkeys. Well, eventually, the monkeys are the biggest headache, but just stop playing the game. Yeah, movie over.
Well, in 1969, Alan Parrish lives in Brantford, New Hampshire with his parents, Sam and Carol. One day, he escapes a group of bullies and retreats to Sam's shoes factory. His friend Carl Bentley reveals a new shoe prototype he made himself. Alan inadvertently damages the shoe after misplacing it on a conveyor belt, but Carl takes responsibility and is dismissed. After the bullies attack Alan and capture his bicycle, Alan follows the sound of tribal drum beats to a construction site. He finds a century-old board game called Jumanji and brings it home. Man, what a brat! He literally destroys this shoe, and then he's just like, and he sees the dude about to get in trouble. He's like, "Well, here I go. Have fun with that."
Other than Carl, who's likable in the movie?
Not many people.
I mean, maybe Peter, but I mean, like Alan, Sarah, Judy. The father, Van Pelt. I mean, that's one of the problems I had with the movies, that nobody is particularly likable, especially Alan as a kid. I mean, I can see why he was getting bullied. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but I mean,
no, I get it 100%.
I mean, he's a brat. I mean, he's on his bicycle and he's just running across. The cop has to stop traffic because even though it says "do not cross," Alan keeps on going. That kid should have been smoked by a car right then and there, and just tied up in this brand new bicycle. And then he's going.
Yeah, he's also just walking into his dad's factory whenever he wants to. And then my biggest thing is when he finds the board game, like he walks onto a job site. just waltzes up there. Dude, like, I work in construction. That doesn't just happen. Somebody's going to stop you before you get that far into it and have time to find a sharpshooter and dig something out of the wall. Like, that's not going to happen.
Not if you're the boss's son. Because
he's not the boss's son on a job site.
But they're building something. Isn't it building around the shoe factory?
Yeah, apparently this dad that owns the shoe factory pretty much runs this town.
Because look what happens to the town. Big.
I see that.
it's a big Back to the Future thing, when something changes, the town goes to pot, and there's barrels in the middle of the square that people are lighting up, but yet they have a Sir Save-A-Lot, and no homeless people at the Sir Save-A-Lot though. But
I,
the
I
one,
I love some of Hollywood's like in movies like this. They're trying to give you a picture of what a town that's in bad shape looks like, and I'm like, I don't think this is really what a town that's in really bad shape looks
no,
like.
That just looks like Caddo, Alabama.
one of the things I think that they knocked out of the park with the movie were the drums being like a siren to people, and just the subtleness of it, and then the stronger and stronger and stronger beat. I mean, from the very beginning of the movie, when the kids are trying to get rid of the game in 1869, to where it's calling Alan, where it's calling Judy and Peter, to where it's calling the two girls on the beach too. Just the drums that are being played really, really do that. That is an excellent part of the movie that really does well. It really kind of sets the stage of why are these people playing the game? Because the game is literally calling them, and I thought that was I liked that part of it.
Yeah, it was a great thing, and it's like one of those things that kind of I don't really want to say builds tension because it doesn't really build tension, but it does kind of build the thing of them looking for something, them trying to find that. Then when they finally do find it, and that reveal of it laying there, it's sitting out. It was a great thing.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, after a disagreement with Sam about attending a local boarding school, Alan plans to run away just as his friend Sarah Whittle returns his bicycle. Alan shows her Jumanji and invites her to play. With each dice roll, the game pieces move by themselves, and a cryptic message describing the roll's outcome appears in the crystal ball at the center of the board. After Alan inadvertently rolls, a message tells him to wait in a jungle until someone rolls a 5 or an 8, and he is sucked into the game. Shortly after, a colony of bats pursue Sarah out of the mansion. So he comes home. He's eating dinner by himself while his parents are going to this lavish party, and there's he's in this huge mansion, and there's nobody there to watch him. I mean, this kid's like 12 maybe,
Mm.
and he's sitting there eating dinner by himself, and he's like, the mom's like, you got to talk to him. Like, yeah, the dad he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were getting chased by 10 bullies and not one bully. But then he's like,
up.
you, I'm proud of you, and to reward you, we're going to send you away to boarding school.
Yes, it's named after your grandfather. You'll love it there.
But don't you know you're going to get bullied because your name's on the building?
No, because he's a brat. That's why he's getting bullied.
Shoot,
that's what his excuse was why he didn't want to go.
Yeah.
They're gonna make fun of me more because my name's on the building.
If we're talking about if this is real life, if his name is on the building, everybody's going to want to be his friend because he runs the place.
Exactly.
He is definitely not going to be bullied even more because of that.
Your name's on the building. You're the guy with the money.
So public service announcements too, because I know how many young kids that we have that are high school or college age. When you go to college, here's a pro tip: find that rich friend that likes to spend money on people to buy friends. And that way, you don't have to really be their friend, but they'll spend a lot of money just to keep you as a friend. That's a pro tip from Coach.
A few hours of an unbearable personality a week for free gifts.
I mean, he's gonna buy Taco Bell every other night. Hey, let's go. I'll be with you for a while just so you buy stuff, buy my friendship. That's okay. I mean, it's 4 years of college. I can handle that. After college, I don't have to see you ever again. Mm-hmm. Pro tip.
Also, did she just show up at the house? Like she was just coming over to the house?
She brought the bike back.
Bike back because her boyfriend's the one that took it from him.
I forgot
what a nice boyfriend.
Yeah, I know. No. Which good gravy. The prosthetic nose on her. Bless that girl's heart that she had to wear the Bonnie Hunt butt nose that had the crease on the nose. That poor girl would. Man, I felt for her having to wear that thing. But having Alan's dad too. This is part of the movie. I wish they probably would have spent more. I think would have made this movie even hit more. Is they barely touched on it at the end and here in the beginning of the relationship with the dad and how important it was. I think that is something that could have been pushed even more, especially when I like when people do this, when you have the actor that is his dad play the actor, which was Van Pelt,
Mhm.
I liked that. I liked that a lot. And he was the best part of the movie, I thought. And David Allen Greer too, but Van Pelt was good. And I liked, just kind of how they pushed that. I think that's something that probably could have been hit even more during the movie, because that's one of the things that I really liked about that.
Mhm.
Other than Van Pelt is an awful hunter. Good gravy, he's an awful
Yeah.
hunter.
As good as he's supposed to hunt, as good, he's the best hunter out there. He must be the only hunter out there.
I don't know how he could be an awful hunter with his automatic old Tommy rifle that he had from the very old 1900s.
I'm not a gun enthusiast, but that thing was cool. That thing was really cool. Now again, so why was Van Pelt after Allen?
I think it was just the rules of the game.
He's the hunter,
like the hungry
game.
lion, or the it was like the hungry lion.
He's the villain of the game. He's the villain of the game. He's trying to get you. I guess I don't.
And so he couldn't get it. He couldn't get him 26 years ago when he was a young kid that that just got sucked into the game.
Was it that like he was hunting him when he was in the game, or was it? I thought it was just he was hunting, and then.
I mean, they talk about it when he comes out of the game, because they're like, "Why is he chasing you?" And he's like, "I don't know." He's just 26 years or whatever. I can't remember exactly how Robin Williams.
Yeah, I thought it was just like he was a known hunter, like in the game, but he wasn't actually actively hunting Allen. Because doesn't he say that later in the movie about like why haven't, like, the lady looks at him and asks, "Why haven't you killed us?" And he says, "You weren't the one who rolled. Allen was."
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was. I'm pretty assuming he was hunting him, because as soon as they roll and Allen realizes it's about to bring out Van Pelt, he takes off immediately.
Yeah.
So
but that's
obviously he's scared. So obviously he had been hunted before and by.
Well, I think it's one of those things, like in the game he knew who he was. Like from just the 26 years that he spent in there, like he knew who he was and he knew that he was an avid hunter. But then it was that moment where he realized, oh, he's hunting me now. And that's why he took off, like, I don't know.
I wish they would have kept Robin Williams looking like he just came out of the game.
Yeah.
Instead of, because, that felt more natural of him trying to conquer all these things and things like that, instead of, all of a sudden he's never shaved before and he can shave. I mean, and he went to the Michael Myers School of Driving and learned how to drive.
At least
let's stop here. Michael Myers was an ace driver. Okay, so. Whoever taught him while he was in prison for 15 years was obviously very good.
Staring at walls, yeah. He was playing pole position or something like that.
But Allen actually couldn't drive, wasn't it? Like, does it show him coming down the street hitting a million things down through there?
Yes, but also the second time he drove with Carl handcuffed, he was taking turns like a champ, like it was Days of Thunder.
J-turn. 100%, no practice whatsoever. Perfectly the first time.
That might be one of the best parts of the movie, where he's like, "Don't worry, I've done this once before."
And again, you have two stand-up comedians right there playing off each other, and again, that did really well. Also,
that's the few points of this movie where it gets really exciting, when you have those two together.
Yep.
Yeah, that's okay. So that goes to one of my major complaints about the movie is it took so long to get going. I mean, there's some. Did. I mean, did we need the him going to his dad's shop? I mean, I didn't need that. I didn't need, just have him find the game and just get into it. I mean,
the only reason for going to the dad's shop, I guess, is to get the thing with Carl.
That's
really not that crucial part to the story, other than the fact that Carl's now a police officer instead of. But
you could have just had it.
Yeah, you could have just had him be the police officer. It didn't really. I don't.
Have him be an SRO or something at the school, and like, hey, I remember you from when you were young. Like, Yeah.
I remember your face on on milk cartons when you got lost and your dad chopped you up in little bitty pieces, but was still looking for you.
Well, 26 years later, Judy and Peter Shepard move into the now vacant parish mansion with their Aunt Nora after their parents died in an accident the previous winter on a ski trip in Canada. Judy and Peter begin playing Jumanji after discovering it in the attic. Their roles summon giant mosquitoes and a troop of monkeys. The game rules state that everything will be restored when the game ends, so they continue playing. Peter rolls a 5, releasing a lion and an adult Alan. While making his way out, Alan encounters Carl, now working as a police officer at the abandoned shoe factory. Alan, Judy, and Peter discover that Sam abandoned the shoemaking business to search for his son after his disappearance until his 1991 death. Eventually, the factory's closure sent Bramford into economic decline.
So another awful backstory with the parents, with Judy and Peter's parents dying. I mean, like, man, it's tough in this movie going on this.
And I tell you, it really is kind of sad when he comes out of the game and he realizes he's in his house. He goes into his bedroom and there's all of his clothes and his bike, and he's like, hey, where are my parents at? And then it's just him running through the town trying to find his parents, where he eventually ends up at their grave. Like, it really is kind of sad.
I don't know how it was in 1995, but I feel like these days, if I'm buying a house, I do not want to inherit all this junk that's still in the house, in the attic.
It's a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
Which I'm hard to me. I'm trying. If they died in 91, so the house has been laid vacant, and if they didn't lose the house, because they said they died in 91, but
I thought it said that they were like out of the house before they died. I could be wrong, but I thought I remembered that in the movie. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, the house had been on the market for a while. Like, they had moved out and they'd been trying to sell the house, but nobody would buy it.
Yeah,
maybe if they clean their stuff. Maybe if they clean their stuff out of it, they might have sold it easier.
So it's too many bad memories to pay a moving company to clean your house out. Okay. You wouldn't want to put your bad memories on them people.
I mean, imagine buying a house and you can't get into one of the rooms, and they're like, "Well, it's locked."
That's where you do an about face and you walk out because there's something in there that somebody doesn't want you to see. And hey, I'm out of there. I don't buy the house. Period. If I can't get into every single, because the times I've looked at houses, son, Ernie Ferguson is pushing every button. He's opening every door. He's looking at every window just because I'm like, ooh, what's this button do? Ooh, what's this button do? Hey, where's this door go? I don't just go, oh, wow, look at this foyer right here. I'm going to buy this house.
The realtor had their easiest job ever.
Exactly.
Really did. They walked in the front foyer and that was it. So
this is perfect.
Go ahead, Dakota.
Let me ask you this. I know this has changed the subject a little bit. And this is something I think, not just this movie, but a lot of movies that I've noticed, I don't understand how the key to that door works. If you have a key that can go all the way through the door and come out the other side, how is it going to unlock something?
That's a good question. I think the key is just so pretty looking that it's like 3 inches long, but the door is 1.5 inch thick. It would be like going, hello, it's going all the way to the other side. But again, it's movies, so
I get the movies and looking through the keyhole, and I get that whole thing. It's just I never could in my whole life. Every time I see a keyhole like that in a movie, it doesn't make sense to me how it would work. Like, you got to line it up just halfway through the door and twist it. Like,
it's like, why can't I look in somebody's ear and see all the way through their head and throughout the other ear? But I did kind of go back to what you said, Dakota. I think one of the most poignant parts of the movie is when Alan comes out, and it is a moving where, again, you can see the excitement that he's out and he's looking forward to seeing his parents, and then the absolute sadness of not being able to find anybody. And I think that was one of the good points of the movie too.
Oh. Well, realizing
he's already bored. You're already bored with it. I'm waiting for the low score from you because you're already bored doing the review.
Is this the moment where the monkeys steal the car the first time?
Yeah, I think so.
I thought it was whenever Van Pelt came out. Because Van Pelt was chasing Alan, and that's when Carl got out of the car, and I thought that's when the monkeys.
Because I remember he's driving by the house. No, because he's driving by the house over there. Robin Williams jumps onto the hood of the car, and then Judy's going through her whole lie thing where she's the compulsive liar, apparently, and the monkeys are in the back.
That's right, because that was after the monkeys got set on fire by the stove and were coming out of the refrigerator and all that, all like Gremlin-esque.
Then they go back into the house, and Alan shaves for the first time ever. And
I'm sorry,
and then
he's going to have more patches. He's going to have more. He's going to have more cuts on his face if he shaved the first time and he had that big old mop on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the cuts go away like the very next time you see Alan.
Yeah, so the very next scene.
It's a miracle.
But then he tells the kids, "Well, hey, you need to go find a new place to live. This is my house, so I'm moving back in."
You're the old owners of the house.
Get out of here.
Showing him the deed, like, no, thank you. Well, realizing that they need Sarah to finish the game, the three locate Sarah, who is haunted by both Jumanji and Alan's disappearance, and persuade her to join them. Sarah and Alan soon take their turns, with the latters releasing a big game hunter named Van Pelt, whom he first met in the game's inner world. The next roll summons a stampeding herd of various animals, including several pelicans, one of which steals the game. Peter retrieves it, but Carl arrests Alan as the stampede wreaks a havoc in town. Van Pelt steals the game. It makes me laugh so much when they go to find Sarah, and she's like going by a different name and everything because she's gone so crazy from this, and I'm like,
2,000 hours of therapy.
I think you're taking this a little too far.
How many days is that?
I don't know. That's a bunch. Again, how does she have money to do all this? She must be smoking rich too, because I mean, that much therapy, and she's a psychic. I mean, it's not it's not like that nose is hard to remember. I think people, even if she changed her name, that they would be able to remember her. Now, this is coming from a guy that's got a chin and a nose himself, but I mean, that seems like an easy thing for people, again, especially since you don't move towns. You're in the same exact town that people think you're crazy in, but I changed my name.
She said, I haven't gone by that name in a long time. Like she's dang Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now going by Ben Kenobi.
Well, she does. I think you do get one of the first comedy. Well, I know you have the monkeys still in the car, but then you have where she's just like, "Hey, you're the dude that everybody convinced me didn't disappear. Take it from me, and you're just gonna pass out and fall over." I mean, totally valid response, but
which again is very weird. That Alan, I mean, drags her, passed out body to the house. Then he literally accosts her and brings her back into the room, and then tricks her into rolling the dice. I mean, I was like, okay, man. But they fall in love.
Here's my biggest problem with the movie. If I'm Alan and I get sucked into a board game because I rolled a dice for 26 years, you are going to have to do a lot harder than they did to convince me to play this game again.
I mean,
he made the same comment. Just, all right, let him go. It'll be all right. Yeah. We're not going to play anymore. Exactly. I might have somebody here tomorrow to get the line out. It'll be okay.
So this is New Hampshire. Bye. I'm on my way to Washington State. I'm getting as far away from this game as possible.
But they got him to play that game very easily, and I'm just like, there's no way. 26 years in a board game in the jungle. I'm living in a jungle. No, thank you.
But I mean, he still has the 13-year-old mentality. And think about when 13-year-olds get called chicken or stuff like that. They don't think. I mean, he had no way to grow up mentally, So again, reminds me of Christmas Story. I triple dog dare you. The dreaded triple dog dare.
I'm just thinking of Back to the Future. Nobody calls me chicken.
But so we go to the stampede. So we have rhinoceroses, we have elephants, we have zebras. That makes sense. All African jungle type of characters. But then you have pelicans too.
Are there not pelicans in Africa?
I don't know. I've never been to Africa, but that's not what I would think of.
But pelicans, I think of like around New Orleans or something like that. I mean, just somewhere. That's a good little Google search may help. Just about that. I mean, it just doesn't seem like that's a natural.
Ferg's gonna be like, oh, they do have pelicans in Africa.
I don't pretend to be smart about anything. So I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. So I have no.
Great white pelicans range over a large area of Africa and southern Asia.
Well, there you go. Look at me, a lifelong learner. I mean, hey, but again, that's not a very big stampede. I mean, that's.
To be fair, it's enough to get trampled by.
My favorite is definitely
you'll survive though if you're in a car, laying under the dash, and you get trampled on by it.
My favorite is definitely the fat rhinoceros.
The one that's at the very end the whole entire time.
Apparently,
that's my spirit animal.
Apparently, that was a mistake in filming or whatever. Like when they coded it for the CGI, they accidentally left that one's speed just a little bit slower, and so like they're sitting there watching it, and it just happens. It's like, and then they left it in the film.
They should have. That was the best part of the whole stampede.
It was great.
But here's where it picks up. When the introduction of Van Pelt really picks up the movie, because then you really truly have an antagonist step up, and come out, and again it starts to push the part where I think this is the part where little kids want to see this. They want to see the stampede. They want to see all this. This is where it really they really kind of sink in right here. And again, I liked the Van Pelt character in this movie, anyways.
And then he goes to the gun shop and uses his little video game money to. I'm not even sure. I'm not a gun enthusiast. So I have no idea what that gun is that he gets, but I hope that's not how things worked in 1995.
I think this is how the rest of the world thinks guns are actually sold in America.
No, this is like a pawn shop gun shop. So I mean, that's why it ain't the first time, because the woman went straight to the door and went closed. So it ain't the first time that they were probably like arming the local New Hampshire militia with something. So they were ready for January 6th for themselves. So.
I also love how this dude's such a bullet enthusiast that he looks at this round and says, "Oh yeah, they quit making that in 1903."
Well, my other quote
that's believable though. I could definitely believe there's a gun enthusiast that can look
at it's believable, but I mean it's kind of impressive looking at somebody and like being able to look at a specific round.
So this is where my other quote was going to be. I was going to say, "You're not a postal worker, are you?" This is the time period where like there were postal workers that like went and shot guns at people. I mean, it's not funny to laugh at, but I mean, but to use that as comedy,
I had no idea about this story.
That's where the whole term "going postal" comes from. Is like they were disgruntled postal workers that came and like shot up the post office.
Hold on, I did not know this.
I think I know. Hey, tag it, Caleb. This is where we're getting this is where you getting the outtake from. The cold intro right there.
Wow. 20 years ago, first to go postal, former letter carrier Michael Bigler remembers the terrified screams of his coworkers 20 years ago when a disgruntled postal worker went on a shooting spree. In the late 80s and early 90s, a spate of shootings by disgruntled postal workers became the primary way most Americans thought of the post office. I had no idea about this. This comment made no sense to me when I was watching the movie. I had no clue about it.
I learn about pelicans. You learn about going postal. Now we just got to teach Caleb something. So,
hey, and well-rounded right here.
Yes, we're well rounded talking about going postal. This won't get flagged at all.
Yeah. The more you know.
The more
Well,
you know.
Peter, Sarah, and Judy travel to a nearby discount store and battle Van Pelt to reclaim the game, while Alan is released after revealing his identity to Carl. Returning to the mansion, the quartet releases one calamity after another until Van Pelt arrives. Alan drops the dice and wins the game, which nullifies everything that happened as a result of the game. So we completely skipped over the fact that Peter tries to cheat the game, and he's being turned into a monkey, but it definitely looks like he's in the middle stages of being a werewolf.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the tail shows up that that's like, oh, he's supposed to be a monkey. That makes more sense there, And also the fact that Peter should have died in the car whenever the animals trampled it. Let's see.
And they
Judy
came out super easily too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm stuck like that. But I do love the fact that Van Pelt pulls the door off and he just grabs the game. Screw the kid. I'm grabbing the game. That was awesome too. So Sarah and Judy should have died when all those tires fell on them, because anybody that's changed a tire knows that tires aren't light. Van Pelt probably should have died when all those cans of paint fell on them. Hey, if this, when was Home Alone? When did Home Alone come out?
I was just thinking about Home Alone. That was literally what was going through my head.
Because
Home Alone was like 1990 or 1991. I think it was 90.
1990. Okay, this is a cheap knockoff of Home Alone. I mean, the whole entire let's put the detergent on the floor, and he starts doing the feet on the floor, and then not okay. How in the world is Peter going to know to knock the ends off the oxygen tanks, and it's going to make the canoe go down? And
his parents were obviously avid thrill seekers. They died for whatever it was,
skiing near the mountains in Canada. Yeah, and so here's another time where, should they have gone for the comedy, slapstick comedy, which they didn't need the slapstick comedy. If they would have taken more time at the home and having them go through more calamities in the home, or spent more time on some of the calamities in them, just like dealing with the alligators, not the crocodiles, but the alligators, have more time with that, or have more time after Judy gets darted in the neck by the flower, having to try to figure that out. That's I didn't need the slapstick, because Bonnie Hunt, David Alan Grier, and Robin Williams are all comedic actors that did comedy, did their own physical type of comedy. They brought their own comedy. They didn't need to do that slapstick. It just didn't. It didn't help anything. It didn't make me laugh. And there's some slapstick I like, but not in this movie. It didn't make me laugh.
You also had the fastest roll of the game following another roll when the quicksand, when he's sinking through the quicksand in the floor, and she rolls it next, and it's like, hey, go back a turn. Now he's stuck in the floor.
Yeah, the game's very nice. I mean, I know all these bad things happen, but he's getting stuck. Oh, let's go back, or we roll a 5 real quick. And
I know he wouldn't have known it, but best case scenario, dude honestly should have just went through the ceiling.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like, just
here's another funny part of, and this is a part where fourth wall breaking works also. Where Peter went and he was looking for the axe. He grabs the axe. He starts hammering and trying to knock the lock off the door. Then he stops. And he looks at the camera because he had the axe in his hand and went over. That was good. That's little touches that that was really, really kind of good. But yeah, the whole entire quicksand thing. Why is quicksand? Does quicksand ever exist? I don't know where quicksand is, but I'm scared to death of quicksand. I'm scared to death of quicksand. I don't know where it's at, but I'm scared to death of quicksand.
Quicksand is the ultimate kids movie fear. from movies and cartoons growing up.
Wasn't it in Princess Bride too? But then wasn't it
Yes.
significantly quicker in Princess Bride?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like,
it went straight down to hell. I'm pretty sure in that quicksand.
He had the bungee cord vine that he jumped down the
Vine,
sand pits with.
yeah.
Yeah, which was a good part also in this. Whenever Alan jumped on the vine and the lion was there right there all of a sudden.
Mhm.
You know, the lion had gotten out and he was swinging. The lion swings at him. And you're like, whoa, that was. I like that. I like the
Mhm.
crocodile scenes too. I thought the whole monsoon part I think was good because this is the type of action that you can watch with the kids because it is intense for younger kids. But one, nobody
Mhm.
dies, you know, and it's just it's adventurous type of things, you
Mhm.
know, and it had and with animals too. So it's not like the one scene that just comes to mind from Welcome to the Jungle or what I think that's the first one, the new ones with just those roll of motorcycles that are chasing people. You know, to me, the dealing with the animals is more enjoyable to think about. But again, it also plays into the board game as opposed to a video game. Also,
There were a couple scenes that I remember that stood out to me in this. When they're in the library and they start arguing and they're going back and forth, and the kids are just sitting there like, "Should we roll? Should we do we need to go through it?" And then they run. And I think that's when the stampede initially
yes,
comes, isn't it? Yeah, like I love the whole move the whole time. Like the kids are looking to them for guidance. Like, hey, y'all are supposed to be the adults here. Like, but y'all are over here bickering like kids. And what are we gonna do? You know. But the other thing that really stood out to me was uh, when Alan I was right there at the end. You had the tension between Van Pelt and Allen, and he's
mm,
standing there with the dice in his hands, and he tells him, "Hey, drop it." You know, and like you know what's going to happen. You know that he's like it's going to roll the dice and it's going to play the game out. But the one dice or the one
just
die rolling and tumbling, and they keep
mm-hmm,
cutting between it and back and forth, and then him actually pulling the trigger and the bullet firing out. You know, and then stopping right before he got to Allen. I thought that the whole tension build up between that whole section leading right up there to the end, but right before it's going to finish the movie. Like, I think it was a good release of all of the tension that had been built up in that last few moments.
and it's a good way to one do what his dad said. You know, stand up to the one bully because there was the one bully, and it's also that one bully was his dad. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and he became a man. You know, and that's why I like. I know this is probably jumping ahead, but whenever he talks to the dad, and the dad said, "We'll talk in the morning, man to man," he said, "Can we talk father and son?" You know, that
Mm-hmm.
was again. That's a good, uh, a good relational type of move for the movie.
Well, Alan and Sarah return in 1969 in time for Alan to reconcile with Sam, who tells him that he does not have to attend boarding school. Alan also admits his responsibility for damaging the shoe, and Carl is rehired. Remembering the game's events, Alan and Sarah throw Jumanji into a river and share a kiss.
So they,
That'd be a weird 5 minutes for the dad. You walk out the door and your son says, "I hate you, never want to talk to you again." You
yes,
walk back in the door and all of a sudden your son is hugging you and
I'm great at this parenting thing.
yeah. I got everything figured out now, man. I just walk out and come right back in and he's all good.
which I'm also like, Dad, I'm like, okay, I've been gone 5 minutes and you already got a girl in the house. I'm like, son, I mean I mean, you're 13 and you're working way too fast.
He not only that, but he's just like leave. He's gonna leave him. Okay,
Yeah,
I see
still gonna go.
you dog, you dirty
I'm
dog,
like,
you.
Game
golly.
recognizes game, son.
Yes, that's why I have your mom browbeat also. I yell and scream at her like all 1960s husbands did, and she's
Yeah.
submissive. So, you know, that was just what he just like, oh, hey, girl. I mean, I think he even like nods at her or something like that. I'm like, okay, yeah. I guess you know
Yeah.
your son has no riz at all. I'm
But
talking like the kids this episode.
yeah. But then even the what was her comment to Alan right before she kissed him was
Like she did while they were still, while all the memories or whenever they were still this age or that the
yeah, before
older
I
age or
feel too
something like
much
that.
like a kid again or something like
Yeah, that's
that.
what it is.
Yeah. And then,
That although they obviously don't lose their memories because, like we're about to get in the next paragraph, they remember the kids when they get older, which just brings me
Mhm.
back to how weird would it be to be a kid, grow up, and then go back to being a kid while you still have the memories of being a grown up.
Yep.
So these two should be serial killers by now, because again, like
Mhm.
you said, we go up to the point where they play the game. All right, she sees Alan sucked into the game. Then he lives 26 years in the game. She lives 26 years thinking that didn't actually happen. They meet up. They go through all this other funky stuff. Then they see the whole entire game go back into the game, the world, and then boom, they pop out. Yeah. These people are not fully functioning human beings that are
No.
having a family and running a business. No, they are in a padded cell and
Mhm.
they are like, Blair Witch Project sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. It's also I also had this comment or this conversation with somebody the other day about somebody we made a comment at work about somebody who's getting closer to retirement, and they said, "Oh, one day you're gonna wake up and it's all gonna be a dream, man. You're gonna have to do it all over again." And I was like, you know how mad I'd be if
God,
I went
I
and
don't want to be a teenager again. Oh my God, I don't want to be a teenager
no,
again.
you tell me I've went and worked 25 years. I'm a few years away from retiring, and you're gonna tell me that I have to go back and start that all over again?
I
I mean,
mean,
by the time that you get to the end of the movie where they're at the Christmas party, these guys are what? Let's just assume they're 13. Now they're what? 63. They've lived 63 years.
But yet they're
Now,
only 39 at this time. So I mean, they've lived two lifetimes, and they've been waiting. I mean, they've been waiting for 26 years to see
hmm
Judy and Peter, and then they act
you
like
have
a bunch,
absolutely no
no
idea who
no
these
idea.
are.
idea who they are.
They're gonna act like a bunch of pedophiles, trying to, oh, come here, I got a gift for you. How do you know who I am?
Yeah,
Oh, I just talked to my wife about you. I know. Oh, okay.
yeah.
You're weird.
In Christmas 1994, Alan and Sarah, now married, are expecting their first child. Alan's parents are still alive, and Alan is successfully running the family business. Alan and Sarah meet Judy, Peter, and their parents, Jim and Martha, for the first time during a Christmas party. Alan offers a job to Jim and convinces him to cancel their ski trip, averting their deaths of the previous timeline. Uh, me,
Convinces
me,
them or just yells at them.
meanwhile, on a beach, Jumanji is seen lying partially buried in the sand. Two French-speaking girls hear the drum beats from the game. Really random that they're French speaking girls.
Okay, geography. They're in New Hampshire. They put it in a river. So you're telling me that game goes across the big pond, all the way to France. Unless these are, unless it's like Cajun. Oh, you know what? Maybe French Canadian. That's the only explanation that you can give.
That
They're French
that make
Canadian kids
that make
that have
that
a
makes
beach
more
somewhere,
sense.
even though there's no French Canadian province that goes to a beach on the Atlantic Ocean at all. But that's neither here
But
nor there. Huh?
here's the crazy thing about Jumanji. We're now averting the parents' death in the previous timeline. So here we are in the multiverse now. we're about to start messing things all up. It's
Well,
back to
and
it's
The
back to the future.
to show up.
well, Carl. I mean, Carl is still working at the shoe factory too. And then Alan's dad. They haven't gone to the poorhouse. They're living somewhere else. Yeah. So yeah, everybody's memories. I mean, how does Carl not still have the memories? I mean, yeah,
It's
that's
too it's
big,
too much
big.
explaining to do.
I know. I'm like,
Yeah.
talk about somebody that really messed up. It'd be Carl. He'd be like, what? I don't know. But yeah, but again, a great way. The way they started the movie is the way they ended the movie.
Mhm.
Two kids and the drums. That's a good
Yeah.
way to, especially after the Christmas scene. It's a good way to finish the
Yeah.
movie. But again, the drums I think are, to me, is one of the most iconic things other than the monkeys,
All right.
and that's not a good iconic.
So, Ferg, and I'm sure you could test this probably a little bit better than I have. I've been a pastor for 8 years now. There are kids that I youth pastored 8 years ago whose names and faces I cannot remember.
Mm.
Tell me how these people are going to remember these faces for 26 years without pictures, names or any form of social media or anything like that of them.
You talking about like Peter and Judy?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about two specific kids. I mean, you're a youth pastor. You have no telling how many kids that come in and you're in and out.
No,
These are two very specific kids that they basically almost lost their lives with and had a special bond. It's different.
No, I understand that, but 26 years of separation.
We don't all have your memory, Dakota.
But you're talking about like sharing specific traumas with. I mean, it's to me, it's different than, oh, hey, we went to Six Flags together. This is, it's not every day that you have a wild game hunter shooting at you. Not every day that all of a sudden that you're about to get bit by these big giant spiders. It's not every day that you got all these monkeys and all this other kind of stuff. So again, you have that bond and memory.
But also, counterpoint to this, they spent a day with him. It wasn't like they spent, a significant amount of time with him. Yes, they did go through a lot of, traumatizing things and everything, but they spent like less than 8 total hours with these kids.
So you're not going to remember a kid that got turned into a monkey in front of you. You're not going to remember his name.
Let's get to the real bottom of this. I think this is coming from a real incident where Dakota didn't remember a youth group kid that he had, and he feels guilty about it. So now he's trying to push it out there, like, hey, this is. Of course, you're going to forget. So it's okay, Dakota.
The smart money would have been if they would have done this like Elf, where they write a story about Jumanji, and they are the authors of Jumanji. Which, if you write that book, then you immortalize Judy and Peter forever, and you remember them.
Which I guess
that would have been a great first time meeting them. Hey kids,
hey, look what the story I wrote about you.
I wrote this story about you, and never met you.
I guess a counterpoint to my argument though is like, obviously they're married now. They've, I'm sure, been friends ever since this incident happened. It's them sitting down and talking about it and doing their best not to forget their names and what they look like. So I guess I could make them up.
I don't think it would have been a big deal. I don't think it would have been a big deal if they did forget, because the kids had never met them.
Is it any weirder than, Marty, would you like to know how we came up with your name in Back to the Future? I mean, that's a little more awkward conversation right there. Well, you see, there's this one kid I was about to hook up with, and he said, call you by this name Marty.
Well, first off, I ran him over, and then I was about to... He was knocked out unconscious in my bed, so I took his pants off.
And I wanted to call you Calvin, but your dad wouldn't let me call you Calvin, so we called you Marty instead.
Well, that brings us to the end of the movie reviewing part of this podcast, whatever you want to call it. Story time podcast. There we go. So I guess now we will go into the rankings. Yeah, and I'll go first.
Wow. He's still in your thunder.
Go ahead. I don't care.
He don't care.
I'm amazed by I'm looking at the spreadsheet and amazed by the font and font change.
Oh crap! The spreadsheet, the hollowed spreadsheet. I got to open that up. I got to make sure that's open. Sorry, hold on.
Oh my God!
Did you do? You did a lot of work on the rankings page.
I am a spreadsheet fiend. Have we not explained this?
No, I know you're the fiend, but you've done some work on this week, haven't you?
Well, every now and then, when I get bored, whenever my ADD doesn't kick in, then I do some other stuff.
That's not true.
I had to change some things so I could post it on Facebook, and I was afraid Ferg was gonna like flog me or something.
No, but here's a suggestion. I would wait. I would post that a couple days after you post our podcast, so that way that's not a spoiler alert. Not that people wait for our reviews, but that's just a suggestion.
I was listening to this dang podcast, and I was getting to the end, and then I pulled up Facebook, and there it was, and now I'm never listening again.
Because I can just see your dad. I can't believe you gave Halloween a 4. I'm not listening anymore.
Spoiler alert: we did not give Halloween a 4.
I didn't. Or did we? You gotta listen.
I don't know. But so looking at Jumanji, and I now have the Hallowed spreadsheet open. But yeah, like I said, as a kid, I remember not liking this movie. I thought it was boring, and as an adult watching it, it was not any different. As I was watching, as I was watching it, as I was watching it, there were probably about
I love it.
5 times that I checked to see how much longer was left in the movie. And actually, normally we've done movies in the past where we have a score in our mind and then we talk about it for an hour and it raises our score. I actually had a score in my mind and we've talked about it for an hour and
It's lowered.
I'm lowering my score. I'm giving this movie a 6. I would even rather watch Princess Bride over this movie.
Wow, that's
That's
big.
A hot take for you.
That is huge. That's huge.
Yeah, I don't. It pains me to say
Wow.
that about a Robin Williams movie because I absolutely love Robin Williams, but I just did not like this movie at all.
Wow. All right, Dakota, it's your movie, so I'll let you go next.
Oh man. I've really been struggling about what I was going to rank this, and I kind of when I sit down to rank movies, I kind of sit down and think about like, okay, like if I'm thinking about, hey, I want to watch this movie, is this just something like where I would put it on my list of where I would rank it to watch, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's some movies that I feel like that are feel good movies that I'll turn around and I'll look and watch, and I'm like, yeah, like that's pretty high up there. This movie is not that high up there on my list, and to be honest with you, I don't really feel like it's a cult classic because I don't really feel like there's just a ton of people out there who are just absolutely in love with this movie.
I'm trying to figure out how this was such a huge box office success. I really don't know.
Don't me wrong. It is still a really good movie. I say really good. It still is a good movie. Like it's really not that taking it for what it is. It's a kids movie that's not really meant to have a lot of serious parts taken in it, stuff like that. Like if you just look at it at face value for what it is, it's just a good movie that you could sit down and watch. Am I gonna say, hey, this is a blockbuster, I'm gonna rewatch this 2 or 3 times a year? Probably not. But if it's on TV and it's there, yeah, I might watch it for 10, 15 minutes or so. So I think I'm going to give this movie a 7.
One, for me to answer the question, this movie made money because of one thing, and that's Robin Williams. That's the only reason why this movie made a lot of money. Well,
makes sense.
But again, the one of the biggest detractors for me is the CGI, because the CGI did not, for the 50% of the CGI didn't hold up, and I wish they would have kind of done a more Jurassic Park where you have practical features, practical effects as well as special effects.
You're telling me those spiders weren't practical effects?
So, but I mean, Robin Williams, you're talking about, you had Aladdin in 92, Mrs. Doubtfire in 93, and then Jumanji in 95. Robin Williams is why this made movie. We have seen movies with big actors that are horrible that have made money. But, as a kid's movie, this is a pretty good movie. It's probably better than some of the Disney movies. But in saying that, that's still not much. For me, and I can't believe I give this, I'm giving this 6.5.
Well, that averages out to a 6.5 total. Ernie, where does that put us on our movie rankings?
That is 17th. That is the bottom. That we've done 17 movies, and Jumanji is 17. And that is barely a cult classic, too.
But still a cult classic. So we still, if you're listening for the first time, we split our movies into 5 categories. Blockbuster is the highest; it's 9 to 10. Popcorn worthy is 8 to 9. Cult classic is 6.5 to 8. Matinee only is 5 to 6.5, and straight to video is anything below a 5. So That being said, it's still a cult classic, even if it just barely makes it, which means we are still without a matinee only.
That was very interesting. Because again, I go back and I distinctly remember loving this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Yeah, there wasn't any part of it that really stood out that was like, oh yeah, this is why I liked it. It wasn't Robin Williams being comedic. It wasn't any of the actors or actresses being just particularly having a standout performance. It wasn't like there wasn't really anything. The only thing that stood out was like how bad the CGI was, which, like you said, you can't write that. You can't write that off as, oh, well, it's a 30-year-old movie. When you stop and you look at like Jurassic Park and other movies that came out in that time frame, like
it had a bigger budget than Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I think that I think that a lot of that Robin Williams, but then I think because I think it had more CGI, and whereas Jurassic Park CGI for the most part was far away, and you can get away with something not looking as real, but when the monkeys are literally in your face, it just it just doesn't work. It just didn't work.
No.
So it is what it is. But again, and it didn't let Robin Williams be Robin Williams.
Robin Williams was paid $15 million to star in this movie, by the way. So
there you go.
What was the budget? 65?
65, so he made 15, so 15 of 65 went to
That's a pretty good percentage there. That's math, but that's a pretty good percentage of the movie right there.
All
I
right.
won't try to do math.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Ernie, it is your pick next. Please tell us what wonderful movie we'll be doing.
We are going into the suburbs of Ernie Ferguson's mind when he started listening to Public Enemy and he started listening to NWA. We are going New Jack City, where Wesley Snipes became a star. Buckle up, son. New Jack City.
New Jack City.
1991 movie where, ironically, a guy who rapped a song called Cop Killer is a cop, and that's Ice-T.
All right. Well, so next week, New Jack City. That is Ernie's pick.
Yes. That's a movie that neither one of y'all have seen, has it?
I've never heard of this movie.
I live for this.
I have never seen it.
I live for this.
Obviously, I have seen the meme that comes from it.
I might recognize it when I see it.
And again, this movie did not come from the list of movies that I asked Ernie what he was thinking of.
No, I told your dad exactly what was going to happen. What were the movies I gave you?
Blue Lagoon,
Xanadu.
I'm really glad.
And Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Really glad we did not do Xanadu.
I told your dad, I was like, I'm tired of him asking what list of movies. So I'm just going to. I had 1980 on the mind.
I'm pretty sure when I asked you, I literally said, "What list of movies that you're not going to pick from?"
Then that's the movies I didn't pick from.
I like to see where your mind's at, so I can look at those movies and know, all right, we're not doing this movie.
Well, you know how ADD my mind is. Then by every time you've asked, I have and now this one on purpose, but not purposely have I gone like changed the movie I was originally going. It's just one of those, as I've already discussed, how ADD I actually am.
Well, all right. So New Jack City is next week. Jumanji finishing that up 6.5. If you're just joining us at the end of this podcast, if you're read the last page of the back of the book first kind of guy, so you can find these episodes on Apple and Spotify. Please leave us a review, but only if it's 5 stars. Again, we thank everybody that's been listening. I think we're up to about 350 something downloads total, which is a lot more than we thought we would get. I think we're averaging about 20 an episode, so that's pretty good for us.
I'd say that's 19 more listeners than what I thought we would have.
Yes,
and there's 3 people on this podcast.
But all right, guys, if you don't have anything else to add, Ernie, please get us out of here.
Hey, we'll see you at the movies.